Hello friends, it's Nancy from Astrology and Angel Mediums, and today I have another weekly check-in reading for the week of Sunday, March 22nd through Saturday, March 28th. So let's say hooray for making it through another astrological year. We now are in the beginning of Aries season and we're welcoming spring. And in honor of that, I wanted to use the Astrology Tarot. This is a beautiful deck. I don't really use it very often, but I think it's perfect for the energy of today and kind of seeing what we have going on. And let's kind of do a little check-in with this deck that is beautiful as we talk about the vernal equinox. Even though I don't really feel like we had much of a winter season here in Colorado. I know other places like the East Coast really experienced winter intensely this year. And I think up north in the Midwest. So let's see what we have. We're going to just put her there. Let's see what we have for week as a collective. What do we need to know as a collective? We have the Devil. What do we need to do as a collective? We have the Seven of Cups. What do we need to release as a collective? We have the Nine of Cups, I believe that's what this one is. That is the only thing. Sometimes it's like, I'll think it's one card and it's not. So we'll just make sure with the book. What do I need, or what do we need to contemplate this week as a collective? So here we have the Four of Pentacles. All right. So let's kind of talk about these cards and our little extra jumper that wanted to come out first. So very first card that kind of popped out was the Nine of Swords. Now, typically this is a card that to me can really represent us being very stuck in our anxiety. We're overthinking things. We are overanalyzing. We are like our darkest fears are kind of at the forefront. And I think that's kind of the collective energy for many of us, especially here in the United States. A lot of us are maybe struggling with, you know, what comes next? What is this going to look like? I know there's a lot of things that we're all kind of thinking about and trying to kind of focus on and can kind of struggle a little bit with. I guess I would like to say that we're kind of thinking about where is this leading? Like what will come next? What will this look like? I think a lot of us are kind of very much in the mind, kind of focusing on what does this mean for me and mine, and what will kind of come from this energy. Now, swords are typically, you know, related to the mind, to our thoughts, to our communication, our words. I think nines can be very much closely connected to the energy of like we're almost there, but there's something we need to release or something that we're ready to kind of let go of. And so there is this like beautiful kind of energy that tends to come with the Nine of Swords, which can be challenging to kind of address because it's making us confront some of these things that we have been carrying for some time. So we may feel like there's not really a way out of things. We may feel like it's challenging to kind of focus on, okay, well, there's not really a way out. So I have to kind of just go through, which can be hard and confusing and uncomfortable. And so I think this card kind of coming out first, I think the biggest thing is that maybe this week is one where we need to be very aware of like our own anxieties, like what sort of things have we been carrying with ourselves? What sort of stuff has been affecting how we communicate, how we connect, what we're thinking about? Are we so focused on the issues and the problems? I feel like with this, it's like almost saying like we're like this big cat, you know, and we may be looking at like everything around us without realizing how truly powerful we are to kind of rise above things. So while things may seem very bleak, things may seem very much like out of our control, or we're, kind of forgetting how truly powerful we are, I think that this is a reminder of this sort of energy of no matter what it is that we think can be the worst case scenario, or we're kind of like looking at, oh, this is going to happen and that's going to happen, and this is going to make it more challenging and that's going to be more difficult. At the end of the day, we will only know what things are like once we kind of go through them and once we are confronted with them. So as much as we may want to prepare and expect the unexpected, we can't always prepare for everything, and there are so many variables in life. And so maybe at this time it's more of just like recognizing what we have within ourselves, recognizing our own divine power, and maybe stepping a little bit more into that energy. I'm going to kind of look at this book and see if there's anything in here that maybe I love seeing what people kind of put together for their guidebooks. So anxiety, guilt, depression, inner torment. So it is a panther retreating into the trees, hounded by a mob of shining blades. So the darker moments that come at night when we are so troubled by sadness and anxiety that sleep seems impossible. The mob's blades symbolize those troubling thoughts and the way in which they form a cage within the mind. Often it is possible, even necessary, to push these thoughts aside during the day, but at night they seem to multiply and circle endlessly. This card reminds us that pain is felt keenly in the dark, but some decisions should be slept on, for everything is clearer in the morning. I love the energy of what they wrote for this guidebook regarding the Nine of Swords. And yes, it can, again, like I said earlier, it can talk about like those anxieties, those bad dreams, those nightmares, and things that kind of affect us in different ways. And I think a lot of us, I don't know about you guys, but I have been so exhausted because I feel like I have not been sleeping very well the last like month or so. And I've had a lot of stuff kind of happen in my personal life, which is why I haven't posted. And I appreciate you guys that are here and have subscribed. It means the world to me. But as I kind of was thinking about posting this today, it's going to be a little bit later than I typically post it. I just decided to sleep in because I was actually sleeping for once. I think having this Nine of Swords kind of pop out, it's a reminder that the things that we fear and the things that are heavy on our minds doesn't always really represent the reality of the truth and the light of day. So maybe we need to kind of reflect on what sort of things are we carrying with ourselves or within ourselves, and maybe shine a little bit of a light on it to kind of see where we're kind of keeping ourselves stuck in some way. Now, with what we need to know this week, we have the Devil. And I know this is a card that typically there's a lot of fear associated with the energy of the devil. I think that a lot of people look at it from this like place of the devil is this very like ominous, unknown kind of entity that's coming to, create chaos and disorder in your life. When in actuality in tarot, it really represents this energy of what are we binding ourselves to? This is the card of the, the addict in so many different ways, whether it's, substances, whether it's imbibing, whether it's, with our behaviors, with the things that we surround ourselves with, the things that we do in our lives. The devil is very much this kind of energy of really understanding that sometimes the things that keep us chained or make us feel stuck, we have so much more control over them than we may feel like we do. They understand that, some things are, sometimes they feel like they're so outside of our control. And it's not to say that you have to do everything alone. That's not what I'm saying here. The devil can very much be this sort of energy of we need to realize and recognize where we are keeping ourselves stuck, where we have maybe been doing a little too much of something. And I feel like that's very Pisces season coded energy. But as we're moving into Aries season, I think a lot of us are kind of going to feel a little bit of like this initial spark. And I think with everything going on in the world, a lot of us are maybe feeling a little bit stuck with where we are, what we have, what we're doing in our lives. And I think the devil can kind of highlight a lot of this energy of where we feel like we're a little bit bound in some way, where we may feel like there's some sort of energy that is not really allowing us to kind of move into the things that we want to do. So what we need to know is that maybe the devil is more of this anticipation and energy of, like there's, keywords here: bondage, lust, fixation, constraints. So I think what we need to know this week is that there are a lot of things that maybe are holding us back, and maybe there's a lot of things that we've kind of bound ourselves to or tied ourselves down to. And in a lot of ways, it's almost saying like there's these elements of ourselves and in our own personal lives that maybe we need to reflect on. And I think that's perfect Aries season sort of energy, is that we need to take some time out to kind of reflect on, what have we been doing? How have we been showing up? And what does that really mean for us as individuals moving forward? So I think the devil is kind of saying like this week we need to kind of reflect a little bit, take some time out to kind of look at where have we not been quite so honest with ourselves about the things that have kind of kept us bound. What sort of things have we been like wishing for and lusting after that maybe don't really make sense for where the world is heading and the things that we have in our lives and what we want and need. Moving on to what we need to do this week, we have the 7 of Cups, I believe. Let me just make sure, because again, like I said, sometimes with these cards, I'm like, did I get it right? Yeah, it is a 7 of Cups. So the 7 of Cups to me is a card of like daydreams and illusions. It is a lot of choices. It's a lot of this opportunity to kind of reflect on everything that is being presented to us. And with what we need to do is maybe we need to be more aware of what is it that is currently being kind of put upon us and kind of placed before us. It doesn't always mean that everything that is given to us is going to be beneficial or something that is going to bring us the things that we really desire and need. Essentially, I feel like 7s in tarot can be very much about like choices and that crossroads kind of energy. And so I feel like a lot of ways this can be very much about like what we're feeling, because if we think of like the energy of cups, it's the watery element, right? It is the cups in the sense of connections. It talks about our relationships, our feelings, our emotions, our intuition. I think that there's also like this kind of sense of what we are, reproducing in some way, because I feel like there's this creative element, but in the sense of, what are we like in a very fertile kind of energy. So I think that this is going to be a time where a lot of us are kind of looking at, well, what am I choosing to do? What am I actively looking at? Because maybe not everything that is being presented to us is the current truth or is the reality of what we're looking forward to. And maybe what we're looking at right now isn't really what it is, if that makes sense. So I think that when it comes to what things look like and what we're seeing, so I think given that we have the devil for what we need to know, given that we have the 7 of Cups here, I think that we have to maybe pay attention to like the illusions and the fantasy. So here we have shallowness, truth-seeking, affairs, illusions, and a masked woman carries a tray of spilling cups. She's a central figure in the crowd of masked animals. The 7 of Cups is a card that warns about the power of illusion. Life is presenting seemingly fabulous options for you to choose from, but you must look for the truth and not be swayed by shallow flashiness. Remember that if something seems too good to be true, it probably is. This card often alludes to romantic entanglements or emotional affairs. Now, I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, there's like all this stuff going on. I think with what we need to do is that maybe it's really saying we need to kind of cut to the truth of where maybe we haven't been quite so honest with ourselves, especially given that the devil is one of these cards that talks about like the things that we're addicted to, the ways that we don't always like see how we have a lot of control over ourselves. The 7 of Cups is kind of here to let us know like, hey, we have to kind of look past the illusion. We have to kind of see past the things that we've been hanging on to that don't really make that much sense. And so I feel like this week is one that we're wanting to kind of remove ourselves from certain situations because we're ready to confront some of the fears and the anxieties that we've had previously. Now, with what we need to release, we have the 9 of Cups. So the 9 of Cups with what we need to release. Now, typically the 9 of Cups is this beautiful card that talks about our wishes being fulfilled, our dreams coming true. It is, again, it's a 9, right? So we have the same kind of energy of the 9 here of just kind of like we're ready to let something go so that we can kind of move on to the next thing, but we're not quite there yet. Now, this card being with what we need to release is that maybe we need to look at some of the things that have changed about the things that we had desired and the things that we had kind of anticipated or expected for ourselves. So some things are shifting, some things are changing. I don't know if anybody else is kind of like going through that and has had to kind of reconsider like where they're headed, what it means for them. So with what you need to release is maybe some of these ideas of, I thought, especially like at my big age now, where I was like, I really thought my life was going to look way different. I really thought I was going to be doing something completely different. I thought I was going to be in a completely different place in my life, but I'm not there yet, and that's okay. And so I feel like this week is kind of bringing a lot of these things, these energies of, hey, things may not have worked out the way that you thought they were going to, and it's okay to kind of release this expectation of things having to look a certain way in order for you to feel like you're on the right path or you're doing the right thing or that things are really working out the way that you thought they were going to. So this is a card of accomplishment, pride, indulgence, and rest. So maybe we need to kind of like release this sense of, I have to accomplish things in a way that other people can see is an accomplishment. And maybe we need to be more aware of like, are we proud of like the things that we're doing? So though you may have accomplished the task, there may be some cracks in the trophy. When the 9 of Cups appears, let it serve as a reminder not to become too proud or self-indulgent. So I feel like I'm reading the reverse meaning on this one because I feel like with this being what we need to release is that maybe it's like, hey, we need to let go of the stuff that like maybe we've been pining after. We need to let go of this like, I thought it was going to be this way. I thought it was going to look like this. And again, maybe we just need to kind of readjust and manage ourselves, manage our expectations. Maybe there's something that needs to kind of shift a little bit. I know for me, like that's a big thing that's been happening the last year is I've had to really be like, okay, I thought my life was going to look this way. I thought it was going to be this way. I'm just now realizing that may not really be what I had truly wanted for myself in some ways, or maybe I've adjusted and I've changed as a person, and I'm kind of realizing like maybe I want something a little bit different than what I thought I needed for myself. It's like, and as I've gotten older, I've kind of realized like those sort of things don't really resonate with the sort of person I am and like the things that like I value as an individual. So like we're all individuals, and that's what's so amazing about being a person is we can like figure out who we are, what we want, what we need. As I've gotten older, I'm kind of like, you know, I've realized like what I like, what I need, and what I value. And so now I'm like kind of just streamlining my life around those things, if that makes sense. So finally, with what we need to contemplate, we have the 4 of Pentacles. Now, this is typically a card that can talk about just kind of feeling a little bit, I don't want to say like bored, but maybe we've been so focused on what we're creating, like our foundation in a lot of ways, that maybe we haven't really been paying attention to like some of the other things that we need. Now, with what we need to contemplate, this being a very physical card because it's pentacles, it's coins, right? It talks about our material. It talks about earth. It talks about our, you know, home, our finances, our career, our physical bodies, our health. And so what we need to contemplate is maybe ensuring that we are, looking at ourselves, what we need, what keeps us healthy, what, we're doing for ourselves, and how we're kind of establishing ourselves in different ways. When I think of the Four of Pentacles, I think of this like energy of like a firm foundation, right? We're creating something for ourselves. And so it's not always going to feel like the super exciting kind of energy, but it is something that is necessary. So I think that this year, as we're kind of moving into a new astrological year, we have this kind of energy that's kind of inviting us to look at, what are we doing with this like foundation that we're creating for ourselves, and what does that mean for us as individuals, as well as what are we valuing here, in so many different ways. So the Four of Coins talks about greed, emotional detachment, shallow happiness, and generosity. So a grizzled merchant sails through a blizzard to escape his hometown with his wealth. This rabbit is not a generous, friendly character. He has sucked every penny out of his family, his community, and now hoards it in a miserly way that leaves him alone in the cold. This card illustrates an individual who has had success but is not wielding it in any way that is conducive to happiness. Good parents teach their children generosity from a young age, and it is an opportunity to return to those roots. Now is a time for selflessness and generosity and the value of community around you. I love the message. And while I think it's interesting that they've chosen to kind of go with like the more miserly, closed off kind of energy with the Four of Coins or Four of Pentacles, I think that it's almost saying like, maybe you've been so focused on what you're doing for yourself that you're not paying attention to how that may affect the world at large. And I understand America has this like very individualistic way of being. Community is something that is very challenging to find in the US, I have noticed, especially like my culture is more Mexican. I grew up in Mexican culture here in the United States, and even in Houston and stuff, being from the South, I guess. There's like this very friendly nature to like where I grew up and how people were. And I think maybe even just like as we've kind of progressed through time now where social media really does rule over a lot of like what we do, I think a lot of us have this like perception that just because we're online and we have these online connections, that it is a really good substitute for in-person real community and connections. And I think a lot of us are maybe wanting to contemplate a little bit of this energy of like, well, I may not be able to control a lot of these things that are happening at large, but what does that mean for me as an individual and what I can do for myself in my community? And I know for me, like, I'm very introverted, you guys. I really don't socialize very much. I've been doing it a lot more in the last few months, which is a little bit of a challenge, because even like there were some events going on yesterday that I really wanted to go to, but then I was like, oh, I'm so tired of peopling, so I decided not to go, even though I really wanted to be there, and there's all these things that I've like wanted to go do, but I'm like, oh, I just don't want to people. I just want to be at home and like watch something fun and just not be bothered with other people's energy. So I think the Four of Pentacles is kind of allowing us to kind of contemplate, like, have we been so focused on the material and our career and our most basic needs, that we're also forgetting that community is also a necessary thing for us as humans. So I think that this week is going to be one where we may be feeling a little bit more reflective. We're kind of seeing a lot of things kind of come to the forefront. We're having to kind of readjust what we've expected, what we've been trying to do, how we're showing up in some ways. And it may feel challenging, but it is very much this sort of energy of like, we need to address certain things that we've been carrying, because in order for us to see the progression of what we want, we need to release some of this stuff. So I I want to say thank you so much for joining me on this weekly reading. I know I've been trying not to make these so long, but I just get to yapping you guys. So I appreciate you guys being here with me. I hope you enjoy. I will try to film some more content this month. I've had a lot of stuff happen personally that's just made it a little bit challenging to make the time. And again, like I said, I've just been feeling really drained and very exhausted. And I'm trying to honor what my body needs and where I'm at with that. So I appreciate everybody for being here with me and subscribing and watching my videos. Please take care, stay safe, and as always, make good choices out there. Bye.